Okay, boxing fanatics, welcome to episode 49 of the podcast. I'm delighted to be joined once again by Mr. Steve Weddings. Tyson Fury, cruises past Makhmudov in his first fight in 16 months, ending his quote unquote retirement. To beat the Russian pretty handedly, I thought. I thought the first round maybe you could give to Makhmudov, but I think every other round, I think he won. Um, yeah, I thought it was a fairly good performance by Fury. The hand speed was sort of there. The boxing ability, the switch hitting was there. Never been the biggest puncher ever, Fury, but the accuracy was there. And yeah, he done what he had to do really. Um, yeah, to I guess get through I guess a little bit of a banana skin, you could say. Um, but yeah, Steve, what's your initial thoughts on Fury's win last night?
I think you summed it up quite well, actually. It was a rust cheddar, really. Fury lasted the pace well over the 12 rounds. I thought it would go the distance. I thought it would be messy. It went pretty much how I expected it to, actually. Makhmudov also kept the pace, which I wasn't convinced that he would be able to. There's a fighter in there somewhere. I do think, I do think so. Amongst all the sort of neck twitching and all the weirdness and the bullying and trying to get inside, etc. I think Makhmudov is actually, he seems like a decent guy. I actually quite like him, but as a fighter, I mean, we saw against Dave Allen that he could box. He stood off and used the jab a little bit, but for such a good amateur who's blitzed so many people, he's adopted this pro style and his inability to get inside properly is just absolutely mind-boggling. I know he was blowing people away early, but last night he was throwing about three or four punches on the way in before he even got to Fury. He is such a big, cumbersome brute, and don't know whether the scores were maybe a bit harsh on the big lad. I thought maybe he could have had another round. Nothing beyond that, I suppose. But the 120, 108 maybe didn't do him justice. But as for Fury, that's what we were there for. That's what everybody wanted to see. And his uppercut worked well. He switched stances, as you said, did the pace pretty well, even though he didn't look in the greatest shape, but he never does. It's a bit boring at times, a bit like the Fury of old. He used to just shut people down. I was ringside for the Kevin Johnson fight in Belfast many years ago, and that was one of the worst I've ever seen. And I'm not saying last night was quite as bad as that, but it was a functional performance. In summary, he did what he had to do, get the big lad out of the way, and then hopefully move on to the bigger and better things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the word I like to describe Makhmudov is just crude. He's just so crude. It's unbelievable how, there's so slow and clubbing and he just falling into Fury all the time. And it was a hard watch at times. But one thing I do like about Makhmudov is that he always comes to win and he always comes forwards. He's not the type of guy who's gonna, he at least tries, he at least lets his hands go no matter how clumsy it may be. He was there to win and he actually did catch Fury with a few looping right hands, I suppose. Fury actually, he actually looked like he was in a fight, to be honest. I mean, after the fight, he had, his face was bruised up and stuff. So, I like how Makhmudov at least tries. And, yeah, they're outside the ring. I don't know. Yeah, despite his kind of Bond villain kind of looks, yeah, he seems like an all right guy. He tried his best. Was just overmatched really. That's all you can do. He done his job as a kind of as a comeback opponent. Um, and yeah, that was it really. Fury dealt with him quite nicely. Fury now obviously he's 37 years old. Did you see any regression there? I mean, we know, like you mentioned, Fury never, he's not body beautiful. He never has been, to be fair. He's never a guy who comes in with a six pack or even he's always got those massive love handles. Fury, he's definitely not a poster boy of athlete, but we all know what a good fighter he is. Anyway, now 37 years old. Yeah, did you see any regression there? Anything to suggest that, this is a guy, on the decline, on a real decline?
I suppose you could see what you were looking for. I've heard people saying he looked good. He looked for someone who'd been out the ring for 16 months or whatever it was. And I heard other people saying they looked like he'd regressed. He looked slow. His timing was way off. So I suppose you can find whatever you want to see. It was a rust cheddar. We won't know until he steps up to the highest level. I mean, he had those three really hard fights with Wilder, which I think would have took a lot out of him. And the fact that he was competitive with Usyk for the two fights that he was, I mean, he still seems to maintain to this day that he won them both, which he didn't um, suggests that he's obviously going to have some wear and tear, and he keeps having these extended periods as well for whatever reason out of the ring and retiring and coming back. But I think for somebody who had been out of the ring for so long with so many miles on the clock. I think he looked pretty good actually, but we won't know until he steps up to the next level of opposition. He won relatively comfortably, looked good. Assessing the wider strength of the division as well, you have to say if he were to face a Caballel or a Riakpo or an Okoli or something, even a Daniel Dubois, we would then assess him upon the level of opposition that he's in against. But against a guy like Makhmudov, where all he had to do was be fit, functional, get his timing back together again, I thought he looked good. We won't know until he steps in against the very best. But who are the very best at the moment? I mean, obviously, we want to see the AJ fight. He's already beaten Wilder 3 times.
Mm,
Chisora, he's beaten him numerous times as well. He's lost twice to Usyk, so there's no rubber match potential there. Although I do think stepping ahead, they will try to make that. But on face value, I thought he looked decent. I thought he looked good, and he looked switched on as well and focused. Because in the past, we've seen him against the likes of Ngannou not focusing. I think at times in the first Wilder fight, not focusing. When he got a test in front of him, and he's the kind of underdog, then that's when he performs best. And last night, considering that he was expected to win and win well, I thought he dealt with it well. And from what I've seen so far of his return, I don't see any major decline or major issues with him. But the level of opposition, Dan, will decide, I think, as to how much he has declined, if indeed he has so.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I agree. I think he's absolutely a big night fighter for sure. When he's on the big, he always performs well on the big stage. To be honest, I mean, despite losing to Usyk twice, and I'm amazed when I hear these journalists. You know, one journalist said, "Oh, I thought you won the first fight." I'm thinking, please, come on. He lost both fights. You know,
First Usyk fight, did you say?
yeah. I mean, I had a journalist at a press conference say that I thought he said to Fury, "I thought you won the first. We won the first fight." I can't believe professional journalists are making comments like this. You know, it's just crazy, but it shows the kind of fanboyism of Fury. People
Yeah,
are so,
different attitude.
he's got some people under his spell for sure. I mean. I can't believe I hear that, honestly. But anyway, despite losing to Usyk, he did, he gave two respectful performances. Obviously, yeah, the first Usyk fight, we know the middle rounds, he was, that was two of the hardest, rounds Usyk's ever had in his career, those middle rounds, those body shots and stuff. Um, you know, and obviously against Klitschko, obviously that was a fantastic night for him. The Wilder fights, there was a historic as well. So this is a guy definitely on the biggest nights he does tend to perform, to be fair. And then on the nights where, he's meant to win, like Ngannou, I mean, that was incredibly close fight considering Ngannou, his background and stuff.
Mm.
And he's had some other shockers over the years as well. Yeah. So I agree. I mean, I thought he just done what we had to do, really. I mean, yeah, I mean, it was what it was. I think in many ways, Ngannou was just a perfect opponent because, he's very slow hand speed. He's not very, he's strong, but he's not very athletic. He's very one-dimensional. And, Fury with his IQ, I think, yeah, was always going to kind of, do well there. I find it interesting, actually. It's funny because when Makhmudov faced Dave Allen, we were all saying, "Oh wow, Makhmudov can really box." Like Dave Allen made Makhmudov look like a like he had good boxing skills, but then against Fury, it's like Makhmudov looked like he didn't have any boxing skills. So it just goes to show the level of Fury. To be fair, in terms of does the fact that Caballel and Guido Vianello they both stopped Makhmudov and then Fury's gone 12 rounds, does that tell you anything? Is that an indicator of his level at the moment at all?
No, I don't think so. Styles make fights, etc., and context makes fights as well. I think whenever he fought Caballel, he'd been blasting people away, and he came out as usual trying to get rid of Caballel early. Caballel weathered that storm, hit him to the body frequently, and stopped him. And then against Vianello actually he hasn't really hit off for him as a pro, but I think he showed against the Jaguar and against Makhmudov. He was actually a very good amateur, and he's a good boxer, Vianello, and he's kind of got over those stumps early, those hurdles and humps early on. And against Makhmudov, I think he showed that he's a good boxer and he's actually a good fighter. And then again, Makhmudov then showed in return against Dave Allen, against a certain level of opposition, that he can box a little bit and he paced himself a lot better and he seemed to be in better condition and he wasn't doing those sort of funny moves that he was doing early on in his career. And again, against Fury, you've got Fury coming back after so long out, trying to pace himself, plus the improved, and I do think he has improved version of Makhmudov for what he is, rather than just going and trying to bomb rush people in the first 3 rounds. So I think all of those things combined means that we can't take too much out of it. putting Fury in context with the other guys. I think the situations all have their own sort of merit.
And yeah, fair enough, fair enough. What I would say though is, I think Cabello, even though Makhmudov was, yeah, back then he was going through, he was even more, he was even more kind of going for it in the first round than perhaps now. I still feel like that was the best version of Makhmudov because I think Makhmudov, when you're undefeated and stuff, and back then, people were really thinking he was going to be, a dark horse, whatever, and Cabello dealt with him dealt with him very well. But I guess, yeah, Magomedov doesn't fight like a guy who's kind of, yeah, lost a couple times. He still looks confident in the ring. He still goes for it. So yeah, it's fair point. Yeah, I mean, look, Magomedov has lost to three, Fury, and he's lost to two. You could say, I don't know, Caballero's obviously people think he's top five. Guido Vianello, it's debatable. Top 20, top 10, top 30. I don't know. It's very debatable, but he's had some decent wins. I guess time will tell. Where
Makhmudov's lost to the best fighters he's faced, hasn't he, really? I haven't got his record up in front of me, but if you think about it, he's steamrolled everybody who's like, half decent or crap, and anybody decent he's faced, like, has beat anybody with a jab and a bit of movement has beaten him.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. It's true. It's true. That's true. Um, One thing with Fury, he did get caught with some looping right hands. I mean, I don't think Fury's ever been super elusive. But I guess when he was younger, maybe he was, I don't know, he had a bit more foot speed than he perhaps does now. I don't know, maybe a bit more head movement as well. Is it fair to say Fury's maybe not as evasive as he used to be? I mean, even against Wilder, he got caught a few times and stuff like that. He got caught many times. He got dropped, I think, four times or five times in the three fights overall. But I mean, when you're getting kind of tagged by Makhmudov, is it fair to say that he's even more, hittable than he used to be, Fury?
Possibly, but I think as well, Makhmudov's unorthodox approach maybe lends itself to that a little bit. Fury, I don't know, he has been elusive at times and he's been able to shut people down, but he's always been kind of hittable. Like you said, Wilder as well. I know we've done a bit of historical revisionism with him, not necessarily us two, but some people have. But Wilder was like he found a way of hitting people, and he was one of the biggest hitter of his generation. And Fury took all those shots and basically just outlasted him. But even back to the Steve Cunningham fight, I remember Fury getting hit a lot early. I was at the Nikolai Firthner fight in Belfast. It was a proper fun fight, man. 5 rounds, the two of them hitting away. He was badly hurt. Fury came back to win. That other fellow as well, Pavlich or Pikic as well. He hurt him in Manchester early on, and then after that, under Peter Fury, Tyson kind of went to that style where he was switching a lot. He was very negative. He was just shutting people down and locking them down. And so I think he's gone through a lot of phases in his career. And at the moment, he's sort of, again, you throw in the timing, you throw in the fact that Mahmoud's really awkward. He was throwing so many shots. A few are going to get through, sorry. And Fury, he has had times of being very negative and hard to hit, but he's also had times when people have hit and hurt him. So I think it was just standard Fury. I don't really take too much into. And he took him well. He didn't really show any signs of getting hurt by a big beast and puncher as well. And towards the end of the fight, I don't think in the last third, Makhmudov really landed anything at all. Early on, he caught him with some right hands and left hooks and that. But once Fury got the range of the uppercuts, I think he was well in control.
Mm. I do remember when Fury actually, when in that second Wilder fight, it was like it was like some sort of birth of the new Fury. When he stopped Wilder in 5 rounds or something like that. I always remember that. I was like, yeah, Fury 2.0 or something, the Sugar Hill stamp or whatever. He's got the Kronk style, and that's gonna be the new Fury, and yeah, it's kind of evaporated a little bit. To be fair, he's struggled to replicate that. But I guess I don't know. Fury maybe at his best has always been just kind of a slickster. He's got the height, he's got the reach. He's 6'9" apparently. I don't know, but he's still, he's always had that kind of slickness about him, and and he switches beautifully. So I guess that's always been his strength, to be fair. But like you said, yeah, coming up in his career, he was kind of, yeah, he was trading a bit more, wasn't he? Yeah, but yeah, like you said, he's evolved a lot. Fury, he has evolved.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
evolved. He's gone through a lot of styles and a lot of looks, and you never really truly know what you're going to get from him, do you?
absolutely not, absolutely not, absolutely not. I guess that's part of his enticement to us boxing fans, I suppose. He's quite unpredictable. In terms of Makhmudov, it's another loss, but it feels like it's not the end of the world for him. Is Makhmudov just becoming that guy? Is he becoming kind of kind of the gatekeeper now at world level because he seems like we've said he's lost to like kind of the top guys. Is he just becoming that guy that if you can't beat him, you're basically not you're not top 10, you're not top 20. I mean, yeah, is it fair to say Mahmudov's becoming kind of the gatekeeper of the division?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. It'd be interesting to see what they do with him now because he would have had a big payday from Fury. Are they going to try and rebuild him in Canada and try and get him back towards the shot, or are they going to say, "Come on, if you think you're big enough and strong enough, your Moses Atomas, your whoever else, come and get through Big Makhmudov. We'll bring him over. You pay us." He's fought Tyson Fury now. Everybody knows who he is. He'll fill out a stadium. Depends which direction his team want to take him in.
Fair enough, fair enough. Well, look, after the fight, there's no surprises. Well, I mean, what happened? Well, depends how you look at it, really. But as we all saw, Anthony Joshua was in attendance um, at the ring after the fight, and Fury obviously called him out. Um, yeah, what did you make of Fury calling Anthony Joshua out? I mean, obviously, we know the history here. This has been a fight like a lot of British fights that should have happened many years ago. I think there was a time actually when both were actually world champions. That was probably the best time to actually. I think at the time Fury was WBC and Joshua was unified or not. There was a time when they were both world champions. I believe it didn't happen then. I always remember that time when it was supposedly signed and Deontay Wilder had that arbitration or whatever, and then it pushed the third fight. Um, what did you make of Fury? Basically, what did you make of Fury calling out Anthony Joshua? Was it kind of the right thing to do? Because we know Joshua's had had a personal tragedy a few months ago, and obviously, fair enough. Joshua's chosen to come to the fight and stuff, chosen to be against the public eye and stuff. But I mean, is that a bit clever of Fury to be kind of calling Anthony Joshua out, considering what happened in the last few months in his life?
Yeah, I think I went through varying emotions watching this. At first, it was kind of funny, then it became a bit cringy, then it became awkward. Nobody really knew what they were doing. But I think someone said to me, "Oh, well, Joshua's been paid to be there," and I thought, well, I suppose maybe if he has been, but otherwise, what's he there for? Like you write
Mm,
about the personal tragedy, etc. But if you're sitting inside at Tyson Fury fight on a stadium on Netflix in front of all these people watching at home and watching in the audience, then of course once Fury wins, he's going to call out AJ sitting ringside. I mean, everybody knew that. Surely Joshua and his people knew that as
mm,
well. And I was having to think about it actually. And at first, I thought to myself, Fury's clearly got the upper hand here. You can see the sort of dynamic, the power dynamic between the two of them. He's leering over the ropes, sort of up above.
mm,
Joshua's seated in a position of like submission almost at ringside, and you've got the one guy sort of shouting down to the other one. And I
mm,
thought Fury was actually quite clever in that he sort of appealed to the common man almost. It was like he mentioned Ricky Hatton as well, and I'm not saying he was being disingenuous doing that, and all singing the Ricky Hatton songs and everything, but he really did a good job of appealing to the common man. The whole let's have a fight. I want to fight you. We're the two kids in the playground. Let's fight. Come on, you shithouse, and all this type of stuff. We've heard all that nonsense from him before, but it was very clear to see to everybody who was watching. He's calling Joshua out for a fight, and what's Joshua going to do? What's he going to say? Are you a coward here? And then the crowd responds. They love it. And Joshua's response, man, I don't know, it was very strange. That whole sort of sitting there, it looked like he wasn't going to say anything, and he starts talking about contracts and negotiations and all this, and the crowd don't really want to hear that kind of talk in that situation. They want him to jump in the ring, stare off against Tyson Fury, and say, "Yeah, come on, me and you will fight." Very much like a WWF kind of
mm,
build up and all that. And I think I was listening to another podcast earlier actually, and on Below the Belt, and the two guys were talking about it, and they had a different take actually, which I hadn't considered. And I thought Fury had won the thing, but they seem to be thinking that AJ came out looking a bit better of the whole thing. Eddie refused to enter the ring. He was protecting his ace card for a start. I thought Eddie would have been straight up in that ring, but he wasn't. And they were saying, "Oh, AJ's not dancing to Fury's tune here," which was kind of an interesting take. AJ has the Wilder fight in the background, so he doesn't necessarily have to take this. So I'm thinking,
mm,
okay, I thought maybe Fury had got the better of it, but I think Fury will still go on to fight Usyk, and AJ might go on to fight Wilder. And I actually don't think Fury and Joshua is going to happen. I just think it's one of those fights that's destined not to happen. But in answer to the original point, I suppose, why was AJ there if not for the circus? And then afterwards, he was sort of talking to Anna Wallhouse about, and you mentioned as well about the car crash, which was obviously terrible and all that. But in the heat of the moment, when he's being shouted at from someone trying to call him up into the ring, people don't really people aren't watching for that. They're not interested in negotiations and excuses, which sounds bad, but they don't want that. They just want AJ to say, "Yeah, come on, me and you will have a fight. I agree to it." So why was he there? What was he expecting? I don't know. The whole thing just got all a bit crazy and out of control. And I don't think anybody got what they wanted at the end of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I thought it was very clever by Fury, to be honest. I thought he was in the upper hand there, just because, like you said, yeah, Netflix, millions of people watching, and end of the day, we've seen over the years of Fury, what he says is not always what he means. So he was like good PR for him, almost like,
Mm.
I've just won. Oh yeah, let's get it on. I'm gonna show that, I really want the fight and stuff, and it kind of did. I don't know. Did it make AJ look bad? I'm not sure. I think it's just very clever, really. I think it's very clever. And if he is serious about fighting AJ, I also think it's quite clever in the kind of bad way, because we don't know what Anthony Joshua is going to be like after what happened. That's the reality. Because I feel like throughout their careers, Fury's also always kind of seemed more inclined to find Joshua when he's coming off a loss, or he's kind of, I don't know. I think like when he lost to Andy Ruiz, Fury wanted to fight Joshua, and now Joshua's coming. Joshua hasn't, obviously he hasn't fought since Jake Paul went through that traumatic incident. It's quite clever by Fury, actually. It's quite clever.
Mm.
But like you're saying, there's still no guarantee. But then I understand what Joshua was saying as well, because Joshua was saying like I'm not, he was saying I'm not about this clout chasing and stuff, because I think he's been through this with Fury as well. This kind of shouting and screaming, and the fight's gonna happen, then it doesn't happen. And you're right, the common man doesn't understand that. But I guess, yeah, it was a weird situation. It was really weird. But then, like you're
What you're
saying,
saying is absolutely right. Is that everything is correct, and there's a lot goes into it. There's all these contracts, all these things in the background and everything, but then it comes to the fact that nobody's interested, like I say, in listening to the Joshua coming off with quote unquote excuses or whatever about anything. If he's there ringside and someone's shouting at you, "Come on, me and you in the playground now, we'll have a fight," and he's trying to come up with like rational explanations and stuff, it just completely like it just wasn't going to work, man. So Fury won the PR battle, definitely.
yeah, yeah, Joshua did make me laugh with him. I don't know if you saw him recording the fight. I mean, that was
Yeah,
quite
that's what I
hilarious on
thought.
his
Could you not
phone.
go home and watch it like on the telly?
I don't know. Josh should not have a Netflix account. He can't watch the replay. I'm sure he's got enough money, but that was hilarious, to be fair.
Yeah, no, I did notice that. I thought that was strange. But that's the culture these days, I suppose. What the youngsters like, they like doing that, don't they?
I guess so. I guess so. Yeah, I guess it's an interesting situation. It's interesting. I mean, as boxing fans, we obviously all want it to happen and stuff. It'd be a shame if it didn't happen. I don't know. I think I'm inclined to think that maybe it will happen, just because I don't think either man is going to retire anytime soon. I feel like both men want to continue. So I feel like, I mean, it's not personally, I don't want to see Usyk Fury for a third time. Really don't want to see that. In my mind, Usyk's won both times, somewhat convincingly, uh, both occasions. Joshua Wilder, okay. I don't know, Wilder's had that win. Some people think he looks a bit, resurged. I don't know. That's another potential. It's crazy when these guys are still around after all these years. Um, Out of interest, I mean, look, this is very hypothetical, because obviously we haven't even seen Joshua come back after the tragedy and stuff. If they were to fight next, who you kind of, if they, if an agreement, let's just say hypothetically, an agreement's been made, and Joshua agrees to fight Fury next without a warm-up fight or anything like that, who you picking to kind of come out on top of that one out of Fury and Joshua?
I think, yeah, there's so many variables. It's hard to say with them both being at the ring for various reasons, etc. I just think that Fury, generally, apart from against Usyk, who's the all-time great, he just finds a way. He just finds a way through, finds a way getting it done. Although I don't think he's going to miss a match or anything like people are saying completely, but I think AJ would really have the bit between his teeth, and that he could definitely hurt. He could definitely hurt Fury, and it's a very close fight. But I think just because of the tools and his ability to just get over the line most of the time and get the job done, I think if he's fit and firing and he's anywhere near his sort of best, plus his opponent is also got a lot going on and not been at his best, even without the car incident and stuff and the fight against Paul. AJ's been kind of sort of meandering himself after the Usyk fights and then the loss to Dubois, which was very damaging. I think Fury
Mm.
just be able to lock him down and just shut him out. But hope they just get it on. And I hope I'm wrong, and they just manage to make it and get the money flowing and get boxing people behind it really because I think Turkey, like, I mean, he's just terrible at these things. When he got in the ring and he teased earlier there was going to be a big fight earlier on the night, then he gets in the ring, you think, right, okay, he's going to get the two of them together. He's going to announce it. Right, Turkey, you've got a big announcement. Here's your platform. He takes the microphone and he's like, well, it's up to this guy, it's up to these guys, and he's got nothing to offer, man. I mean, he's obviously pre-agreed it with Frank behind the stage, who's supposed to be suing him. Like the last I heard, they've obviously agreed they're going to do this, going to call out Joshua. He's not agreed it with Eddie, who's clearly gone sour on the whole Saudi project. Like he wasn't interested in the limelight for once. But I think Turkey, he just wants to be the man in the centre of everything. But he's just like a bit of an awkward nerd, and he's at the table with all these sharks because of his vast amounts of money, and he just couldn't. He should have stood. I was just really expecting him to stand there and say, "Right, this is done. It's taking place in Dublin, whatever they're talking about, Cardiff, Millennium Stadium on such and such a date." For really forcing their hand, get into the ring, AJ, and he just had nothing to offer basically.
Mm. I'm just confused sometimes watching this. It's like a soap opera because, yeah, I thought Frank was suing, the Saudis and stuff, and then I see him backstage like giving him a T-shirt or something. I don't know, the Manchester T-shirt, or whatever. I'm
Mm.
just so lost with these promoters. It's becoming, and it's just so many of them now. There's like, it's like five promoters in attendance. You had like Ben Shalom in attendance, Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren. Uh, Spencer, what's his name? He's like
Brown.
Spencer Brown, yeah, Gold Star, I suppose. It's just like it's all these like moving parts. It's crazy. I don't know. It's becoming so complicated.
Tufa in the background, and
Oh yeah,
your man, none of their representatives are even there, even though they'd spent all that money on Ben on the undercard. It's the whole thing's so strange.
100%. Yeah. Why was Dana White not there? I mean, that was his show, was it not? That was his show. Very, very strange. Very,
Well, I
very
think they've
weird.
got this seller promoting now. Yeah, I don't know. He was over in America, I think, and all, but I mean, there was no obvious representation. The whole thing's become so weird and disjointed, as we know. And Ring Magazine obviously is just a sort of PR function at this point, and they're sponsoring shows. And you've got the Saudis, you've got Seller, you've got Zuffa. And all the promoters still kowtow into them. The whole thing's just become a muddy mess.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, look, I think, you know, as boxing fans, we'd like to see Joshua Fury happen. So let's just see. Hopefully, it can just happen. It's beyond this kind of sell by date now. Both of
Mm.
them, neither of them are the best of their generation. That title goes to Usyk. We know that now. So let's just give. It'd be nice to give the fans a big fight. I mean, if I was to predict, I think Joshua is gonna have a warm up fight first. I think it would be almost a bit inadvisable to go straight in after what happened. So I think I can see Josh having a warm up fight, and I don't know, maybe depending on how he looks, maybe the Fury fight might happen. If he looks like, you know, I don't know, maybe if he looks too good, maybe it won't happen. I don't know. I'm hoping it will happen. Um, yeah, they're both coming towards the tail end of their careers now. Let's just see it. Let's just see it, and then yeah, then we'll go from there, I guess. All right, guys, want to call it there. Thanks a lot for listening. Thanks a lot to Steve to joining me once again. And yeah, if you like this episode, please like, comment, subscribe. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.